Welcome to In the Zone with Anthony on a Wednesday evening. I guess in the basketball world, it would be a somber Wednesday evening. I expected to be back in the zone, but I didn't expect to be back in the zone with the news that broke this evening as Bobby Knight, Indiana basketball coaching legend and controversial figure, dies at 83. Bob Knight arrived at Indiana mostly unproven in 1971. Upon his firing 29 years later, he had accumulated countless records and awards and had taken the Hoosiers to the summit of college basketball 3 times. However, the General's tenure in Bloomington ended marred in controversy. Following his firing in 2000, the public has carried a split opinion, especially those in the state of Indiana. In 2019, the Indiana Star reported Knight's health was declining. Knight was hospitalized for 3 nights with an acute illness this April. All of you guys go home tonight, do me a favor, get on your knees, and say a prayer for Bob Knight and his family, Indiana head coach Mike Woodson said October 20th at Indiana's annual Hoosier Hysteria. Make no mistake about it, Bob Knight is Indiana basketball. Robert Montgomery Knight died Wednesday. His family announced on X, formerly known as Twitter. He turned 83 years old October 25th. The Knight family requested people honor his legacy with contributions to the Alzheimer's Association or Marian University. Prior to coaching, the Orrville, Ohio native played at Ohio State for 4 years, winning the 1960 National Championship and competing in the subsequent 2 championship games, losing both. His collegiate coaching career started at Army West Point, where he was an assistant for 3 years before being named head coach in 1965 at the age of 24. He held that post for 6 more seasons while simultaneously serving in the military. He was on active duty from 1963 to 1965, in the reserves from 1965 to 1969. Knight was originally rumored to become head coach of Wisconsin in 1968, but once word spread, he turned down the offer. 3 years later, he accepted an offer from Indiana at the age of 30, replacing Lou Watson and his acting head coach, Jerry Oliver. Watson stepped down to become special assistant to the athletic director and helped with the hiring of Knight. Watson compiled a 62-60 record with Indiana, and Oliver was 7-17. Knight quickly led Indiana to prominence and didn't look back. In his second season at the helm, he led Indiana to a Big 10 championship and a Final Four appearance. His first of 11 Big 10 championships and 5 Final Fours. A few years later, Knight and the Hoosiers reached the peak of the sport for the first time and did so in fashion that has yet to be replicated since. Indiana's 1975-76 squad rolled every opponent in the regular season and continued to do so in the postseason. It thumped Michigan in the national championship to secure a title with a perfect 32-0 record, the last Division I men's basketball team to go undefeated. In 29 seasons, Knight led Indiana to national powerhouse status and established the school as a basketball blue blood. He led the program to 24 NCAA tournament appearances, 3 national championships, and 1 NIT championship. Knight accumulated 662 wins, 3 AP Coach of the Year accolades, and 5 Big 10 Coach of the Year awards before his dismissal. Knight's coaching philosophy included perfecting the motion offense, stressing ball movement, and focusing on team effort rather than individual scoring, and hounding man-to-man defense. He was also a strong proponent of academics, often boasting a high graduation rate for his players. Numbers have been disputed, but Knight and others claim as high as 98% of players graduating from Indiana under the General. With Indiana, Knight coached a plethora of legends, including Isaiah Thomas, Calbert Chaney, Steve Alford, Scott May, and Kent Benson. He boasts a coaching tree of former assistants and players such as Hall of Famer and former Duke head coach Mike Krzyzewski and current Indiana head coach Mike Woodson. Knight finished his coaching tenure with 902 wins, the then most Division I coaching wins that currently stands 6 all-time. He collected 2 gold medals, including 2 gold medals coaching Team USA, doing so in the 1979 Pan American Games and in 1984 Olympics. He was inducted into the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame in 1991 and the IU Athletics Hall of Fame in 2009. Despite his success, which few have paralleled, that adorned Hoosier Nation, his highly controversial character compromised his image and resulted in his termination in 2000. Knight's complicated legacy stems from altercations extending well beyond his fiery on-court persona. In 1979, Pan American Games in San Juan, Puerto Rico, Coach Knight was infamously charged with assaulting a San Juan police officer while coaching the United States basketball team. He was found guilty after being tried in absentia and sentenced to 6 months in prison, but Puerto Rico failed to extradite him. The play of a youthful and exciting USA team, which went undefeated in his 9-game slate, was thoroughly overshadowed by Knight's conduct. 6 years later, in February of 1985, Knight performed arguably the signature act of his coaching career, one that still lives in infamy. In a rivalry matchup with Purdue, just 5 minutes into the contest, Knight objected to a technical foul call by hurling a plastic red chair across the floor. Knight was ejected from the game and later joked about the debacle in 1987, facetiously implying he meant to throw the chair to an older lady on the other side of the court. Then came 1988 in an interview with NBC correspondent Connie Chung. Bob Knight made an abhorrent comment about rape as a comparison to how he handles stress. He said, "I think if rape is inevitable, relax and enjoy it," Knight said. Former Indiana University President Thomas Ehrlich condemned Knight's comments, which drew admonishment from women's groups at IU and nationwide. Knight, who said his comment was misinterpreted, received no disciplinary consequences. In 1992, an image surfaced of Knight tapping Chaney on the backside with a bullwhip in a practice prior to an NCAA tournament game. Knight brought the whip to a press conference, joking that it provided motivational value. "Probably no motivational device I've ever come across is as good as this," Knight said regarding the bullwhip. The incident caused outrage from the NAACP, but Knight would never apologize. In 2000, CNN Sports Illustrated released a story that would mark the beginning of the end of Knight's tenure with the Hoosiers. Former Indiana player Neil Reed alleged Knight choked him during a practice in 1997. CNN Sports Illustrated corroborated Reed's account with 3 individuals at that practice who requested to remain anonymous. A follow-up months later would feature video evidence displaying Knight forcefully putting his hand around Reed's neck. The saddest part is seeing your child hurt, Pat Reed, Neil's mother told CNN while fighting back tears. That's tough. That's real tough. Then IU President Miles Brand warned Knight about his pattern of behavior and put him a zero-tolerance policy. Shortly thereafter, Knight grabbed an IU freshman by the arm and was fired 2 days later. After 29 seasons filled with fame and triumph, the general was dismissed entirely, crippled by his own misjudgment. Texas Tech hired Knight in March 2001, and there he would go on to coach for 7 relatively unspectacular seasons. He formally announced his retirement in February of 2008. His fractured relationship with the administration that fired him continued to deteriorate. In 2017, in an appearance on the Dan Patrick Show, Knight said he had no interest in ever returning to Indiana University and added he hoped everyone in that administration was dead. But in April of 2019, Knight returned to the campus and appeared at an Indiana baseball game, and he officially moved back to Bloomington shortly thereafter. A little less than a year later, on February the 8th, 2020, Knight returned to Assembly Hall. Knight gingerly emerged from the tunnel and was met by a sold-out stadium clamor for the legendary coach. Knight's past transgressions were momentarily neglected, and instead his greatness was accepted. After vowing to never step foot back in the stadium, there was the general, and for a breath, all was right. Once again, the passing of a legendary coach in the General Robert Montgomery Knight, known as Coach Bob Knight, dead at the age of 83. And that is how we start things off on In the Zone with Anthony. Stay tuned. I'll be back with some more as we are now in the zone. Welcome back to In the Zone with Anthony. Started things off with the passing of Bob Knight. And now we come back in with some news from the NFL, as the other day we were talking about trades. Today we talk about firings. Yep, that's right. Raiders don't waste time making big changes after firing head coach and general manager. That's right. Aiden O'Connell will return to a starting role Let me go ahead and get this pulled up here. All right, there we go. And we are having some technical difficulties. But just bear with me. We will get this information to you. And we're still efforting that. Let's see here. There we go. We're dealing with the Raiders and their firing of their coach. So I think we can pull it back up like this. Here we go. Yep, we got it. Now we have it. Now we have it. Sorry about that. Sometimes these things happen. I listen to radio shows and they have some of these same issues here. But Aiden O'Connell will return to a starting role and will do so after being demoted to third string. Following Josh McDaniel's ouster, the Raiders are preparing to install the rookie as their starting quarterback, NFL.com's Ian Rappaport reports. This is not expected to be a one-off, with Rappaport adding O'Connell will take the reins going forward. Jimmy Garoppolo returned in Week 8 from a back injury that sidelined him the previous week. But despite signing a 3-year deal this offseason, the longtime starter will be benched. This will certainly mark a major transition for the Raiders, who had used Brian Hoyer ahead of O'Connell in Week 7. The Las Vegas Review-Journal's Vincent Bonsignore initially reported the Raiders were leaning in his direction. McDaniel turned O'Connell in Week 4 following a Garoppolo concussion, but kept him on the bench when Garoppolo went down 2 weeks later. Hoyer, 38, replaced Garoppolo against the Patriots and helped the team to a win. Hoyer then started against the Bears, though O'Connell also saw time late in that ugly defeat against the Tyson Bagent quarterback team. Now O'Connell will make the unexpected jump past Garoppolo for a team that is in line to have Bo Hardigree calling plays. The Raiders have fired McDaniels, GM Dave Ziegler, and OC Mick Lombardi, while Scott Turner is on staff as pass game coordinator and brings 4 full seasons as a play calling OC. Hardigree received the nod. Linebackers coach Antonio Pierce is now Las Vegas' interim head coach, with assistant GM Champ Kelly, who interviewed for the GM gig, operating as interim GM. Garoppolo's demotion would be the most notable on-field change in the wake of the house cleaning. Garoppolo signed a 3-year, $72.75 million deal with the Raiders, rejoining McDaniels after 5.5 seasons with the 49ers. Garoppolo, who played for McDaniels for 3.5 seasons in New England, has started 63 career games. Although he has developed an earned reputation as the NFL's most injury-prone active QB, Garoppolo has fared well in Kyle Shanahan's system. But the 10th-year QB, who turns 32 on Thursday, did not hit the ground running when back with McDaniels in Las Vegas. Garoppolo sits 30th in QBR. The Raiders' problems on offense go deeper than Garoppolo, hence the firings by a team source informed Rappaport that O'Connell is the team's best QB. That certainly remains to be seen. The Purdue product flashed during the preseason and received the first crack at replacing Garoppolo, though Hoyer re-entering the picture does not bode too well for the 4th-round pick prospect. Khalil Mack sacked O'Connell 6 times during a 7-point loss in which the rookie fumbled thrice. O'Connell still completed 24 of 39 passes for 248 yards in that one-score loss, though a late red zone interception denied the Raiders a chance to tie that game. O'Connell saw regular season action in all 4 seasons with the Boilermakers and worked as their full-time starter in his final 2. The Raiders met with each of the top 5 QB prospects this year, but eyed Tyree Wilson in round 1 and tabled their QB pick until number 135 overall. This decision points Garoppolo to another free agency bid in 2024. Garoppolo is already guaranteed $11.25 million for 2024, but his 2024 base salary, also $11.25 million, shifts from an injury guarantee to a full guarantee on day 3 of the 24 league year. Garoppolo passing a physical next March will make him easier to release, putting a bubble wrap scenario in play for this year's Raiders edition. So there you have the news on what's going on in Raider Nation. And you just wonder if their franchise will ever get back to any sense of prominence. Well, that is going to do it for this edition of In the Zone. I just want to get on here real quick, more importantly, to report the news of the passing of the legend Bob Knight. Hope you have enjoyed this brief edition of In the Zone with Anthony. Until the next time, take care of yourself and each other. I'm coming up on that 100th episode, and I'm toying with some ideas of what I can do to make that a special occasion. So there may be some interviews, and there may be some look backs at some things from the past, such as some coaching legends, gone but not forgotten. But I am coming up on episode 100, so if you have some ideas, let me know. Float them by me. I'll be glad to take them into account. But until the next time, take care of yourself and each other. This has been a brief edition of In the Zone with Anthony. I'm out.